Hey everyone, welcome to Spoiler Peace Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Dave Riedel. My pronouns are he, him. I write about movies, and I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
My name is Evan Crean. My pronouns are he, him. I'm co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s movie guide to better living.
And my name is Megan Kearns. My pronouns are she, her. I write film reviews for Edge Media Network, and I too am a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
You are indeed a member.
Mm-hmm. Indubitably.
I'm trying to change it up each week now instead of just yes, you are. So,
I like it, keeping things fresh.
Yeah. Listeners, let us know how you feel. All right. So we have 3 movies on the program this evening. But before we get into that, I wanted to tell everybody that over on our Patreon, we are discussing Claire Denis' High Life. We had our monthly poll. The subject was movies set in space, kind of a generic movie set in space. The winner, our patrons chose High Life. And boy, is it a lively discussion over on the Patreon.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that now, actually, I mean, now may be the time to join the Patreon if you're on the fence, because
yeah, our patrons are like, let's give them something to talk about.
Yeah.
How about love?
Yeah. How about love and viscera and bodily fluids and all
murder.
kinds of murder and people spaghettification. Oh, just crazy. So that's over on the Patreon for those of you with strong stomachs. And this week on the show, we were talking about 3 movies. We're talking about the documentary Boris Karloff, The Man Behind the Monster. We are talking about the romantic comedy A Grand Romantic Gesture, and also the romantic comedy Book of Love. There are lots of movies called Book of Love, but this is a new one, just so we're clear on that. But to kick things off, we'll talk about the Karloff documentary. Here's your IMDb summary. Karloff, examining his illustrious 60-year career in the entertainment industry and his enduring legacy as one of the icons of 20th century popular culture. That's not a sentence, but okay. That is accurate, though. That is what this documentary is about.
Yep. Boris Karloff.
It's about Boris Karloff, and I mean, I learned some things about him that I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would put this in the category of mind-blowing documentaries. A lot of talking heads.
No.
A lot of talking heads on green screen.
Yeah. Let's since you mentioned that, let's just dive right in, and I'll say my primary issue with this is I'm shocked that a documentary could have such poor production value.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh my God.
It looks like crap. There's green screen issues where you can see people's hair glitching in and out of the green screen. They picked terrible backgrounds, horrible locations. Like someone is getting interviewed at a restaurant and there's a couple eating dinner like one table away from him. And I'm like, why am I paying attention to this woman and what she's eating? Oh, wait, because it's distracting because this is a bad interview spot. And there's just horrible framing of the subjects. Like, why did you frame someone that way? It's so awkwardly positioned.
Yeah.
Sorry. It was just something I kept thinking as I was watching, this documentary, and was otherwise interested to hear what people were saying and wanted to learn about Boris Karloff. But there was definitely points where I was like, like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm like looking at that person's hair glitching out.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really, truly bizarre. And I looked up afterward. I was like, is this team's first documentary? No, the director's made now some of them are shorts, but he's made 7 or 8 documentaries.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are they all like this? Now I feel like I have to watch them all. I mean, I'll watch
confirm.
I'll watch a documentary about Leslie Howard. I don't give a shit. So, it was, first of all, I would have liked somebody to have mentioned that Boris Karloff was as tall as he was, because for some reason, I mean, he's about 6 feet tall, which is not giant, but it's also not small. For some reason, I always thought of him as like a small dude. I don't know why, but he was actually kind of tall. Mm-hmm. And, mention that because, you see all these photos where he's standing next to people like, wait, he's a lot taller than a lot of these people in this. And we all know that actors are short. So I'm joking. They're not all short, just the famous ones. So Anyway, yeah, I mean, I liked this in the sense that there's a lot of Boris Karloff information, and you get to see some old chestnuts like Leonard Maltin pops up, looking kind of angry to be there, frankly. But
didn't get that, but okay.
Yeah. And Guillermo del Toro's in this.
He was angry either.
You didn't think he was angry? He just, well, maybe it's because he was so like, intense is not the right word, but
I think that's an accurate word. I just thought he was fired up because he was excited about Boris Karloff.
Yeah, there you go. I liked learning about some of the other roles that Karloff was famous for, and I also appreciated that the documentary, in a strange sort of forgiving way, but in a way nonetheless, did call out all of the racism in a lot of these movies.
Yes.
I think when they were talking about, I don't know what the full title of it is, but Fu Manchu, one of them said, this is probably the most racist movie of the 1930s. And there are a lot of racist movies from the 1930s. And I was like, okay, I'm glad that somebody mentioned that, because I mean, Boris Karloff is doing essentially, I don't even want to say the term. So,
right. Yeah. That was something that was interesting to me. I didn't know that he had Indian heritage.
Neither did I.
And so it was interesting when they showed pictures of him and his brothers together, and talking about how, because he had this quote unquote ethnic look to him, that he was cast in so many of these parts, including ones where you're just describing, The Mask of Fu Manchu, where he's playing a Chinese person.
Right.
Yeah, that was very common for Hollywood at that time, sadly.
It was. I mean, think about all the Charlie Chan movies, for example.
Yeah, and I think of like Rita Moreno and getting cast in multiple quote unquote ethnic roles. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. So anyway, this documentary had a lot of things to like about it, but the production value was, I really did spend the bulk of the documentary, especially when any of the talking heads was on green screen, just going like, what the fuck happened here? Like,
yeah,
you know,
my thought was why.
Yeah, there are
that too.
There are amateur YouTube filmmakers who do green screen better than this.
Yes,
you know, like
yes.
I watch a lot of YouTube videos because I love I love YouTube, but like, you will see these ASMR videos that look like they cost $1 million, and then you have this thing which looks like it cost $27.50. I mean, it's unbelievable.
But here's the thing: even if they didn't have the budget to do what some video essayists and other YouTubers do, even though a lot of times it is a small budget, but they're doing a lot with a lot of technique and flair and artistry. But they could have literally picked an empty warehouse. They could have picked an empty movie theater. Like, they could have picked an empty restaurant. Like, I don't understand. And then I'm thinking, like, was this during COVID? Like, were people sending in information? Because the audio is also pretty terrible in some of the sound bites from talking heads. So I'm like, is that why they're picking really bizarre green screens? Like, I couldn't get past it. Like, I just was like, why? Why is this happening? It's so bizarre.
Right. Yeah. I was wondering that too, if some of it had to do with COVID. I was like, are they zooming in for some of these? Like, that could explain some bad backgrounds. But like, there were also just terrible choices for backgrounds. Like, the paintings were kind of interesting, like the paintings about Karloff's movies, but then there are ones where you're like, you picked a yellow background to somebody. Like, you just aesthetically, you can look at that and say, this is a poor choice. Like, this is just not a good choice.
Yeah, it was. I was watching this last night just going like, what? Seriously? I mean, and it's really a bummer because I have every Karloff performance that I've seen, I have enjoyed.
He's great.
Now, and now I have a bunch more movies that I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch this one and this one and this one, and I'm even going to watch The Mask of Fu Manchu because why not? But the rest of the time, so when they cut to like Karloff footage of him acting, and then you hear about some of the movies they made before the Hays Code, which were like sort of shocking even by today's standards. you see all the Karloff stuff and it looks great and it's like all put together nicely. And then you cut to fucking VHS Central with Guillermo del Toro and his hands disappearing into the green screen. I mean, Jesus.
Oh,
yeah.
I will say I was kind of impressed with the caliber of talking heads that they got, especially Guillermo del Toro, because he's so fascinating to listen to talk about film.
Yeah. But I mean, like you have Ron Perlman, and it's just like, it's great to have Ron Perlman because he has played a lot of roles under heavy makeup and things like that. And he's a great actor, but he's in it for like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And now you think, okay, did they have to shoot this on the cheap? Did they like run and gun? Was he on the set and he's like, I'll give you 10 minutes. And then they got 3 minutes worth of good stuff from him. And then, Christopher Plummer is in there for a hot second. Bogdanovich is barely in there.
Right.
And Bogdanovich has been dead for 2 years? So they've been making this movie for a while.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Has he been dead for 2? I thought he died more recently than that. But there
there
was definitely like a mix of people that they had
he just
at the
died.
end.
I beg your pardon.
Yeah. At the end, there was a list of like, I don't know, like 3 or 4 people that they're like, in memory of all these people. And then like another like 4 people had died since then. I was like, oh my God, so many people in this movie have passed away, between ones that were already passed away when they made this and ones that have passed away since they put this in the can.
Yeah. I also want to say, I always feel weird. John Landis takes up a decent chunk of interview footage in this. I mean, he's not the most prolific on screen, but 1, that guy doesn't age, but 2, I just always feel strange watching him on camera talk about other movies because he's responsible for the deaths of 3 people on one of his movies. And it's just, it's like, I feel really strange watching him.
I'm glad you brought that up because it made me feel unsettled too.
Yeah. It's just like, I didn't know any better because I was like 15 years old when Coming to America came out. But now whenever I see Landis, I'm just kind of like,
It is weird. Yeah. And I actually interviewed him once. I interviewed him. Three Amigos was coming out on Blu-ray. I don't remember what benchmark it was. But yeah, I remember interviewing him and, in the course of like reading about him and, reading those stories and then like, of course, seeing stuff that it was like, clearly you're not going to be able to ask him about that stuff because they'll like shut down the interview immediately and this and that. It's like, oh man, this is such a weird, complicated, awful thing that happened. And then it's just like, you know it, but you can't talk about it. And it's just,
Yeah. Yeah, it was bizarre. Well, anyway, I think, this is who it was. Dick Miller died like 3 years ago. That's who it was that I was thinking of. And so this movie's just coming out. And I don't know if that was footage they shot with Dick Miller for this or whether it's, some other footage that was shot. But the point is, this movie should look a whole lot better than it does.
Yeah. And it's, where it's not the kind of thing I'm normally stuck on. Like, I think I can be pretty forgiving of production value, but like, it's befuddling how poor it is here. Like,
what a great word.
It is a great word.
It's so confusing because I feel like anyone with a decent camera could literally just like set it and forget it and still do a better job than they managed to do here in this film.
Very Ron Popeil of you. Set it and forget it.
I was thinking of that too. It's like they could also make a chicken. I mean,
rotisserie chicken. Yes. But yeah, no, it is very confusing. And I think the thing is that I also was hung up on it. Like I think we all were, is that there are so many solutions. There are so many workarounds if you are constrained. I mean, we've seen quite a few films that were filmed during COVID that have great production value. And you would never know they were filmed during COVID other than the fact that that's, possibly in the production notes or in an interview with the filmmaker. But yeah. And I have to say, like, I was really excited for this documentary too. I really, really like Boris Karloff as a performer. I love him in Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. And of course, love him in How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And I love that there's quite a bit of time devoted to How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Like, I really love that, because I feel like that's something that when we talk about his legacy and his career, we don't always talk about that because, we talk about the Universal horror films, which of course are what catapulted him to fame. But I love that he was so excited to do a children's story. Like, that's great. And I love that, Chuck Jones really got his likeness, and it's lovely. It's just great. And it makes me even more excited to watch my favorite Christmas, special. But aside from that, and tabling the really awful production value for a moment, this is a pretty standard formulaic documentary. And not that that's a terrible thing, because I think there's some interesting points. I especially like the parts with Guillermo del Toro, and I really like the film historians that they have talking about his work and kind of contextualizing it, which I think is great. But a lot of it is kind of like, oh, hey, then he did this movie, and let's talk about that. Okay, now, and hey, he did this movie too. And it's like, okay, but can we go deeper? Like, can there be more? And so the structuring of it was kind of lackluster for me too. So it was a bit formulaic, bit lackluster, even aside from the production value problems. But Boris Karloff in and of himself is a fascinating person to learn about and to hear more about.
Yeah. I mean, I would have loved to have learned about like why his appearance on This Is Your Life was so difficult for him.
Right.
I mean,
me too.
They can only one person theorizes, well, he was actually really private about his personal life. So, okay, great. So like, let's talk about why. I do like the fact that when they brought out his favorite makeup artist, Jack Pierce, I think was his name, that's the one time he was like, oh my God, Jack Pierce, but.
Because it's not very often that someone is touting the makeup artist and their artistry and talent. So it's really lovely that he, talked about their collaboration and was so, had so much praise for him. It was really lovely to see.
Yeah. Yeah. True. Exactly. That's how I felt too. It's like, the makeup person, gets some props. It's not just Rob Bottin and whoever else. But anyway, I'm talked out on Boris Karloff, the man behind the monster. Anybody else got an additional thought?
Well, just one thing building on what both of you were saying about wishing that it went deeper. The one time that I found the documentary like really compelling and was really enjoying it was the conversation around Frankenstein and the scene where he throws the girl into the lake.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that's the best part of the film.
I really enjoyed that conversation about his objections to that scene in the film and how it was cut and then put in, and just like the whole conversation around that and around his moral objections to it, because I remember seeing that and thinking it was just wanton brutality as they described it in the documentary when they were talking about like his objections to having that scene in there. And so I was like, this is really cool. This is the stuff I want to know. Like, I want to know more about times where he was like, I'm going to do it, but I'm not happy, or I'm going to do it because you're telling me I have to and not because I agree with it. Like that those are the kind of stories I want to hear about something.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Yeah, me too. I also was fascinated that like when the studio execs saw it, they cut that and then it goes directly to, he leaves the lake or whatever, and they cut out the drowning, and then it cuts to like her father carrying her dead body through the town. So the implication was that she was raped by the monster. Yee! And so they made it like a difficult problem worse. Oh my God. I mean, the drowning, and like, I remember when I first saw that, I was just like, oh my God, you've got this moment in this otherwise, brutality is the word you used, Evan. So it's a good word. Just like this shocking, kids don't float the way daisies do, So, yes.
I do love that scene though, because in the film, just because, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is such a tragic novel. And I think that really captures the tragedy of it. And I think Karloff's performance does too. But I also agree with him that he shouldn't have been like chucking her in. Like, it would make sense that he would put her gently in the flowers.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I think Boris Karloff had clearly he was very, very thoughtful about his acting and his performances and why his character would do what he would do, not just in Frankenstein, but in other roles too. And that's really great to see. And it's nice to hear. But I completely agree with you, Evan, that I would have loved to have heard more stories like that too.
Yeah, I agree too. Well, on that note,
yeah.
Let's move on to our next movie of the evening. We have A Grand Romantic Gesture starring Gina Mckee and Douglas Hodge and Dylan Llewellyn, written and directed by Joan Carr-Wiggin. Here's your one sentence IMDb thingy. Mckee, I don't know why, just use her name. Who's writing these things? The characters know me.
Ava.
Yeah. Ava is encouraged by her husband and daughter to take up cooking after she loses her job instead. This is how it's punctuated, by the way. After she loses her job instead, she signs up for a drama class where she falls in love with her Romeo. I mean, that is the most bizarrely written.
Yeah.
I mean, her Romeo, why would you say that? You have to explain that she's in Romeo and Juliet, for Christ's sake. So she's this woman in her mid 50s who's been fired or laid off or as a bunch of her colleagues have. She was a medical researcher. Was that it?
Microbiologist.
She was a scientist in any event. And she's laid off from her job and she's feeling adrift as happens to people who lose their jobs, especially jobs they love. And her husband, who's a real asshole, has her.
Yeah, boy howdy.
Yeah, God, he's just like a fucking unrepentant prick. We'll get into that in a minute. She signs up for this cooking class at a community center. The movie takes place in Toronto, which explains why she has an accent and no one else does. Although some people from Ontario do have English accents. But anyway, that they don't get into that. She's taking this class. She doesn't want to take it. She doesn't have a feel for cooking. So somebody comes in and says, I need one more person for the drama class or they're going to cancel my class because there aren't enough students. So she goes and, she's cast as Juliet. The director doesn't like the fact that his girlfriend is getting all smoochy with the guy who's playing Romeo. So he recasts Romeo and Juliet as older people. And that's where Ava meets Simon and they are Romeo and Juliet, and he's roughly her age. And they, begin this, I wouldn't say torrid. That's not the word for it. They begin this romance. and that's kind of the plot. And boy, is this movie bad.
Oh, okay.
Why did you guys?
Well, we know
like
how
it?
Dave feels about it.
Did you like it? Tell me.
I did. Yeah, I did like it.
Oh, okay.
Believe it or not.
I was going to apologize to both of you for this because it was my suggestion, but I guess I don't have to apologize to Evan.
Yeah, I think that, well, here's the thing. I'm kind of somewhere in between you guys because I think it's a bad movie. It's a poorly made movie. But by the third act, it kind of won me over. I enjoyed it.
You know what? It does get better as it goes along. Once it decides to stop being cute and it actually gets into the emotions of these characters up until Simon shows up at her place drunk, which is just the worst fucking set of scenes.
I kind of love that scene.
Oh, I hated every minute of it.
Yeah. I dug it. It was sloppy and stressful. I was so stressed.
Me too.
During that entire sequence.
See, I didn't think this movie had the balls to have the husband wake up and find them, so I wasn't expecting anything like that. I don't know if that's what you were expecting either.
No, I actually am glad he didn't wake up because to me that would have been too formulaic.
Yeah.
Right.
But Gina Mckee, lovely as always.
Yes.
I thought Douglas Hodge was good. I thought that Gina McKee's adult daughter, Deborah, played by Rose Reynolds, was in a different movie.
A worse movie.
Yeah. A bad performance. I think a distracting performance. Both her character and her husband character, they're dopes.
But they're also just written. It's shitty writing. Their characters are just dog shit. They're
writing and shitty acting to accompany it.
They're there to be funny, but they're not funny. They're just stupid.
Yeah.
Evan, I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I mean they're dopes. Like that's just the whole shtick with them is that they're like out to lunch and it's like he's just like a dorky dope, like idiot kind of character, and she's like I'm constantly not understanding my mom or what's going on with her. Like the whole thing, like oh she thinks because her mom's acting weird she's got Alzheimer's, or she catches her kind of masturbating and so she's like oh she's got breast cancer because she was touching her chest.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And what's interesting to me is I don't know how you both felt, but I felt like Gina Mckee was kind of treating this as a romantic drama and everybody else was treating it as a romantic comedy. And in some cases as the daughter and her son-in-law, like a farce. I mean, those characters are so wildly unappealing and not funny. And I also don't understand why Gina Mckee and then Linda Cash, who plays Simon's wife, I don't understand why they are having confessionals as if we're in an episode of The Office or Modern Family. I don't, or The Real
strange.
World. I mean, where does that fucking come? Like, why?
I think it was a nod in a weird way to When Harry Met Sally.
Yes. Yeah. I was thinking that as well. And also possibly now in some type of bizarro couples therapy of them like decoupling of Simon and his wife and her husband decoupling, because it's like we only see them talking about the situation, but it's kind of like, and then there's no like resolution to those scenes at the end. It's just kind of like them processing all the shit that happens. Cause like the first time we see the confessional, she's like, I fell in love with my co-star, and then just like the finger gun to the head. Like, oh, I can't believe I did that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also got the When Harry Met Sally kind of vibe.
See, I didn't,
but weird, the men weren't there, so I don't know. It was bizarre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think it was very effective, and I didn't enjoy it in any way, shape, or form. But that's completely what I was getting a vibe on.
Yeah, no, I think the other parts for me were more effective, especially as you both were saying. The third act, it really kind of heats up and gets into the messiness of this situation, like the emotions, the situation of the fact that these people like fell in love with each other and are just like don't know what to do with that now because they're like, oh crap, I'm married. Like I've been married. Like what the hell am I gonna do? Am I just like start over? Like
yes, do it, people.
Yeah. What I really love the scene where they're practicing the dance scene from Romeo and Juliet, which the director ends up scrapping, which is funny on its own. But I love that they're talking about their different perspectives, and it's like she's like, oh, I would much rather my husband fall in love with someone else and like keep his dick in his pants. And he's like, for me, it's the other way around. I'd rather my wife like sleep with somebody else, but not fall in love because that's more devastating.
Mm-hmm. I liked that too. I'm really glad that we got the perspective, both of their perspectives on that. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. I think when it's funny that you mentioned that you used the word, the term farce, Dave, because I think you're right. And there are a lot of scenes and characters that are very farcical. And I think once it jettisons the farce and once it jettisons the comedy part or trying to be comedic, I think that's why the third act works, for me anyway, so much better than the rest of the film, because it works so much better as a drama than it does as a comedy.
Yeah. I was also thinking of the scene, and this comes about midway through. Ava and Simon are at the hotel, and I'm not sure whether they've done it already or they haven't. I fucking know. But she gives what is basically a soliloquy, because why not? Because they're doing Romeo and Juliet, about how her husband had this affair, and that's when she gets into her explanation of why falling in love is better than having a sexual relationship or whatever. I can't remember which opinion she had. But then at the end, you know, she's gotten all emotional and she's teary and all that. And then it just switches tone instantly. And she says, but there's also sex. And then she grabs Simon or whatever she says, grabs Simon. I'm like, well, this is just like an emotional moment that's been ruined by a weird, like, are you trying to be funny or is like, I don't get it.
I don't think she was being funny, but I
don't meant her. I meant the movie.
Yeah, I think you're right, Dave. I think it is a weird jarring tonal shift, and I think it is trying to be funny, and it's not funny.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of tone problems for me in the old A Grand Romantic Gesture. And by the way, Simon's Grand Romantic Gesture is terrible.
Oh, you mean when he shows up drunk in her house in the middle of the night with a limo full of balloons? I thought that was pretty fucking funny.
I actually did too.
After he injured his back and he was doing like a zombie walk from the car to his house, and he's like basically just struggling to make it in the door.
Yeah, the one thing that I thought was funny was when he injured his back. Yes.
I like that he's like, you're going to come to the car and there's balloons.
I'm sorry, there's no jacuzzi. He says that multiple times. Like, was she expecting he would show up in a limo with a jacuzzi?
I mean, do people expect jacuzzis in limos?
I don't know.
Fucking idea.
Like, I watch a lot of Real Housewives, and they take a lot of limos, and there's never a jacuzzi in the back there.
Those are the B+ limos, the A limos. Those are the ones.
Oh, they have jacuzzis. Got it.
I don't know.
Yeah, you know. This movie had very similar vibes to there's this Canadian show that I really enjoyed. It only ran for about 3 seasons in the early-ish aughts, called Slings and Arrows, which is about a Shakespeare company, and it's a comedy, and it just, I don't know, for whatever reason, it just very much reminded me of that in a good way. And so I think I had a little bit of warmth and affection for the like Canadian comedy, also paying homage to Shakespeare thing. So that was definitely guiding me through.
I love that. And that's so funny because I also had a little bit of affection for this because of a previous film I'd seen. The TV film Who Am I This Time? Jonathan Demme's film with Christopher Walken and Susan Sarandon. And they're in a play, and they're both very, very quiet, shy people, but they can only truly express their love and affection for each other through their play characters, these passionate characters. And so I was like, but I kept thinking about that film, and I'm like, oh, but that's so much better. But I will say, this film, I did want to see what happened with these characters. And they're in addition to the limo scene, which I do think is actually really funny, I really like the scene, the wide shot when they're leaving the motel and they go in opposite directions, and then it just stays still, and then they come back so they can hug. And then I like that it happens again at the end, where they both go their separate ways after they haven't seen each other for months and months. And then she's sobbing, and then he comes back, and so they can reunite.
Yeah, I like those shots as well. Yeah, especially in the beginning where he's the reversal of that.
Yes.
Like he's standing against that wall practicing, and then she's coming from the other side frantically trying to find her class.
Yep. But yeah, I also really like that we're seeing 2 people who are in their 50s fall in love. And because we don't get a lot of romances, whether dramas or comedies, that focus on people over the age of 40. And so to see 2 people in their mid to late 50s falling in love, and they have these marriages that are fine, but not really exciting, not fulfilling, not great. I think it's really interesting to see, because what do you do when you meet a person who really ignites so much passion and interest and excitement in you? Do you upend your entire life? Do you stay because it's what you've always done and you just try to make the best of it, even though you're not that happy? Like, I think it's raising some interesting questions.
And then it fumbles them all. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
No, I know you don't. I know you don't. And I don't.
But I don't want you to think I totally disagree, because like I said, I think the first 2/3, it is a poorly made film. Like, I don't think it's a well-made film at all. Yeah,
I just, I mean, you both, I can understand why you like the things that you do like. The really wide shot of the hotel of them leaving and then coming back together. I didn't like that, because it's just like, all right, when are we going to see them come back together? Okay, here it is.
But rom-coms are formulaic.
Yeah, they are. But I think this didn't build up enough goodwill.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair.
So that I was just like, when the tropes came in, I was just kind of like, trope.
You're like, get out of here.
Trope. Yeah. Which is really unfortunate, because I've always really liked Gina Mckee.
She's great.
Yeah, she's a fine performer. And and I've seen Douglas Hodge in a few things, and he's good too. And so it just kind of felt like the material wasn't up to the caliber of the cast itself. Well, of the two leads anyway.
I completely agree with you that what the two of them are doing is what elevates the film, not the material itself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They got chemistry.
Yeah.
Yes.
and I also like so actively disliked her husband. I just couldn't.
Yeah.
He was just such a condescending asshole. And also to just like not know what Romeo and Juliet is about. I just don't believe that a person that age who is clearly well educated wouldn't even know what Romeo and Juliet is.
Is he well educated though? We don't know that.
He's a lawyer, but like,
that's true. I forgot all about that. Never mind. I take it all back.
He said he's never seen it. I don't think he doesn't know necessarily what it's about, but him and Simon's wife are definitely surprised when they're like, oh crap, they're Romeo and Juliet. They're not the priest and the nurse.
Yeah.
I just think it's appalling that Ava's husband and her daughter are expecting her to take a cooking class because she's not working so she can cook them food. Gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're jerks, and like, they say all these things that they think they're trying to make her feel better, which if I was in that situation, I'd feel like a million times worse based on how they act with her, and like just signing her up for childcare, like, oh, well, it's fine, we'll live here, not even like asking her input on it.
Yeah, that was gross too.
Yeah. So grand romantic gesture. So, does anyone have final thoughts?
No, I think we covered it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then, let's move on to our next romantic comedy of the evening, Book of Love. I really wish that somebody would just use O apostrophe in a movie title. Book O Love. Why not?
Book O Love. What time is it? It's Book O'Clock.
So anyway, this is
of the clock.
This is a romantic comedy directed by Annalyn Kal-E-Mayor, starring Sam Claflin and Veronica Chigi. And here's your one this isn't actually a sentence, but it's on IMDb. 2 writers thrown together on a book tour in Mexico. Accurate.
Not wrong.
But
not written by a writer, clearly.
No.
Clearly.
Somebody else want to start with this one? Because I feel like I was the odd man out in the last one. So I'd really like to hear what you both think about this story. Does anyone want to break it down? I mean, Sam Claflin is an author. He writes a book. I'm doing it. I'll do it. Fine.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. I know. I just started doing it. I'm like, you dope. You just asked them to do it. Okay. So Sam Claflin has written what he considers like a great romance novel, I guess. And it's not selling at all because it's apparently incredibly boring. And
it's called The Sensible Heart. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, who thinks a good like romance book is called The Sensible Heart? It's like in parentheses the safe thing.
Yeah.
Well, also the way he talks about the book, like the part he reads from, is dull as dishwater and super boring.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so his publisher or agent, I can't remember what she is, Lucy Punch, playing an American.
In England,
in London,
which is weird.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know.
Yeah. She says, your book is fucking on fire in Mexico. It's selling crazy. Like, we want to send you on a book tour in Mexico, and we'll have a translator there with you, and da 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 da. So his translator is Maria Veronica Chigi, and as it turns out, she's not only going to be his translator for the book tour, but she translated it from English to Spanish for the Mexican publication. And in the process of it, she rewrote it to be this torrid, steamy romance novel. So you have all of these people who've read the book and the audience just kind of like losing their shit. And he's like, I don't understand. You all are talking about a different book. And then, it comes out that this is what's happened, and and
I mean, that leaves out a good chunk in the middle where they're like on the tour getting to know each other, and like they kind of can't stand each other, but it seems like there might be a little something there toward the end of the trip. And right when he's about to go home, they're told like, oh, hey, we need a sequel out of you. And basically you guys have to write it together.
In 10 weeks.
In 10 weeks. So they got to team up. And then that's when they like spend all the time working together. And then they have issues where it's like, you know, she's like, you can't write without me. And then he doesn't until they have like, they finally get together, and then he's inspired and writes something. And then he's mad at her because her ex is being a dick and made it seem like they're still hooking up.
Yeah. That's all true too.
And then she's mad because he wrote without her and he promised her he would never do that because they were a team.
Yes. And then during the final scene, he says, "This is my co-author," because she's like over there in the distance somewhere watching from, I don't know why she's not on stage. I don't remember.
Because she doesn't know that he's credited her as the co-author.
Oh, is that what it is? See, like, I feel like if I liked this movie better, I would have remembered that.
So it's funny you say that, because I described this as better than the average bad rom-com. Like, for me, I probably would have hated this more, but something about it, maybe it was just like the story being kind of interesting and the two main people having chemistry. I think for me, mostly in a friend way. I didn't really buy the romance.
Neither did I.
But I did enjoy watching them interact. So there's that.
Yeah.
Well, I think I liked this the most of all of us then.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Because
reversal here.
I know. Yeah, because I mean, well, here's the thing. It's not a great film. It's very formulaic. It's hitting all of the rom-com tropes, you know, that they hate each other at first and they're bickering and they're complete opposites because he's super idealistic about love but he has like no experience, and she's super experienced about love because she was married, or technically she is still married, but she's separated from her husband and is a single mom now. But she's super cynical and jaded about love. So of course they're perfect for each other in the rom-com world. But yeah, I agree though that so I really like Sam Claflin. I think he's a really great actor, and I always like him in things. And I think he can be really charming, but also really menacing and sinister. Like in The Nightingale, he is terrifying in that. So I think he's really great. And I also really liked Veronica Chigi too. And I think they do have really great chemistry, but I agree with you guys as friends. Like, even though we're seeing all of these like tender moments between them, like, oh, he's cheering up her son Diego, and oh, she's covering him in a blanket when he falls asleep after brainstorming and writing session. We're supposed to feel that they're a perfect match. And I thought they were as friends and as work colleagues. And I would have liked to have seen a platonic love story, but there's something about this film, and it's kind of elusive. It held my attention the whole time, which I was shocked by. And there's some kind of weird, elusive charm to this film. And I can't quite put my finger on it because it's not the greatest rom-com, but I still was entertained by it.
Sorry, I almost interrupted you. I'm very sorry. But it definitely eluded me.
But see, I can totally see that. Like that completely makes sense to me why you didn't like it, or why anyone wouldn't, if someone disliked it. I'm really kind of baffled why I liked it so much. And I don't know if it's because it's in Mexico. I don't know if it's because, and I've been to Mexico. I don't know if it's because of the vibrant color palette. I don't know if it's because I really liked Maria. And I have to say, I think actually now that I'm talking about it, I think this is part of it. I really like the commentary it's doing on masculinity and women artists, and how they don't oftentimes get credit for their artistry, and how Maria aspires to be a writer, but she, doesn't have time to write. So she'll write notes about characters, but she doesn't have time because she's working 3 jobs. I liked all of that. And I think that's why I found that even when it didn't quite work, I was still kind of on board and kind of like, I want to see where this goes.
Wow.
Yeah. That kind of sums up how I was feeling about it as I was watching it. It was still holding my attention. I like the bright colors. I like the setting. I like the commentary on female artists. I also just one of the things that really cracked me up was I love when he got to Mexico that literally everyone wanted to fuck him. He was getting naughty videos from men and women, and I just thought that was hilarious. And there were a group of people that were at every stop on this 3-stop book tour.
They were his
who wanted to
groupies.
know, like, yeah, they were his groupies. And I found that just so charming and funny, and just like how into it everyone else was. But one thing that also was kind of strange to me is, and I know people do this, but there's just some very strange code switching in this movie, like especially in that first kind of like event where he's starting to realize that this book is definitely not his own, and there it's like he's got the interviewer who's speaking Spanish, and is Maria? Mm-hmm. Why am I blanking her name? Because I think I wanted to call her Veronica, which is her real name. And so Maria's like mistranslating, and then there are people who do speak English in the audience, or at least some English, who are like not correcting her, but then they start chiming in, and then in Spanish, but then in English. It's like a weird, I don't know. I feel like it was just some points in the movie where I was like, really? That's the time you're now going to reveal that you can speak English and interrupt this conversation when you could have before?
See, I thought that totally made sense, because first I was thinking like, okay, if you're in the audience and somebody's wrong, you might not want to interrupt them. You want to see where it's going. But as her mistakes, quote unquote, intentional mistakes, mistranslating build up, I think people had kind of had enough. Like, they're like, that's completely wrong. And as far as the code switching goes, from what I have been told by many bilingual, trilingual, multiple language people who speak multiple languages, is that, yeah, sometimes you think of a thought and you think of it in English, so you say it in English. Sometimes you think of a thought, you say it in Spanish, so you say it in Spanish. So to me, that actually felt in a weird way authentic. And I say in a weird way because the scene is absurd. So it's not like the whole situation is predicated on trickery and deception. So the whole situation is absurd. But that part of it, the code switching, felt actually very authentic to me.
Yeah, there was I'll offer counterpoint scenes, but like one that made sense and one that made less sense to me. So the one code switch that made sense was when they get the flat tire and they're by the side of the road, and Maria is just so exasperated that she says something like really hurtful about her son in Spanish because she's just so exasperated. That made sense to me, versus like the scene where they're getting ready for the television interview and the host comes in and it's like mostly talking in Spanish for like almost the entire time, and then at the very end is like starting to talk to him in English. I was like, wait, what? Like, you could have engaged him in English during this entire time while he was just sitting there being like, yes.
Yeah.
No, that's a great point.
So yeah, that's kind of what I mean. But yeah, I agree with you that other scene kind of made more sense. If you're in the audience, yeah, you're not going to be like so rude to interrupt someone until you're like, wait a minute.
Until they were so fed up.
How dare you? How dare you talk to Henry Copper that way? Also, what I thought was a fairly funny joke is that they even mistranslated his name, so everyone called him Henry Copper, which I think is a way better name than Henry Cooper, and he should change his name.
Wow. I'm on a different page from both of you. And I think I understand where you're going. I think the big problem that I had, or several big problems, were I agree with you both that their chemistry was more as a friendship than it was a romance. I thought that she was great. I really liked Veronica Chiggy's performance. And I liked Maria as a character. What I really had a problem with, and this reminded me a lot of Sam Claflin's performance in Love, Wedding, Repeat, which is still one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Oh my God, that movie is an abomination.
Yeah,
and this is
execrable.
This is better, but it's like, I don't want to see young English people doing Hugh Grant light. Hugh Grant doesn't even do that anymore, with the stammering and the tripping and the blinking the eyelids a million times. That has played out. Okay, so let's just not do that. And the whole time I'm watching this, it's just like I'm watching this mannered, stilted performance. And then you have Veronica Chiggy, whose performance is just like comparatively so natural, Yeah,
it's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, and I could not get past that. Every time Sam Claflin spoke or raised an eyebrow or, like drank something, I was just like, ugh. This is like somebody decided, either him or the director or both of them, that he was going to play Hugh Grant in this, and it just drove me up the wall. And I haven't seen Sam Claflin much. I mean, I know he's in the Hunger Games. I thought that the few scenes he's in Enola Holmes, where he played, is it Mycroft? Is that the other Holmes brother? I thought he was really good as the asshole older Holmes brother. But this, I was just like, I can't even believe that this is a performance that was sanctioned. I just don't. Oh my God.
It's funny. Like I totally get what you're saying, and there were elements of this performance that like you reminded me of Love, Wedding, Repeat, and B, I found really obnoxious. But I feel like Veronica Mckee did enough heavy lifting on her side that I feel like if we're looking at a scale, it was tipping much more in her direction.
Oh, for sure. Like the only reason that I didn't. Well, I have this policy to watch every movie unless it's a glimpse inside the mind of Charles, whatever the third. But yeah, an old chestnut. Look that one up, kids. I just was so relieved every time she would come on screen, because it's just like, oh, good. Because it was just a relief to, like, as you said, Evan, take the weight of the scene and carry it. Boy, am I really surprised that I did not like these two rom-coms, and you both kind of, I'm
shocked. Yeah. Like, seriously shocked, because I know, like I like rom-coms. I know Megan loves them. I know you love them, but like, I'm shocked that like neither of these hit the mark for you.
They really
I think they weren't bad enough. I think, Dave, you like really, really, really bad ones or really, really, really good ones.
I do like really bad ones too.
And these two, I think, are two in the middle for you.
Yeah, you're right. I do like bad rom-coms. Yeah. There's one that I saw with I don't remember her name. She's got the piercing blue eyes, and she was in Percy Jackson. But it's just so awful, and I'm like, this is amazing. I've got to find out what it's called so I can tell you both. But
yes, I want to know.
It's so terrible, but I was just like, I was just captured by it, and so with this, yeah. I think you're right. I think this is just like it's
not bad enough.
Yeah, some of it works, and some of it, like his whole performance. I think this is how I feel like, when they did Zack Snyder did the zombie movie in Las Vegas, and they cut out Chris D'Elia and put in Tig Notaro instead. That's what somebody should do with this. They should take out Sam Claflin and put in some other actor, like they did with Eric Stoltz and Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future. How they literally just shot like some angles and didn't have the other actors redo their lines against him. I mean, I apologize for being, it's not really vitriolic, but I'm
That's pretty vitriolic.
Yeah.
I mean,
but it's funny.
It is funny. And I liked Sam Claflin. I just don't think he was, again, if they're doing the romantic angle, I don't think he was the best for this film. But I do actually like him. Like, I think he's doing a good performance. Like, I felt bad for him. Like, when you find out that he's led a really lonely life, and his, mom died young, and his dad wasn't around. And I don't know, I kind of felt bad for the guy. So, although he's wildly sexist, assuming that the translator is a man, and also apparently writing pages and pages of description about a bicycle, but only one sentence about the heroine.
Yeah.
So he's a sexist jerk.
Yeah. And also just kind of an annoying guy, just like annoying, pretentious guy.
He also doesn't know to tip the valet. Come on.
Yeah.
That really bothered me.
Always tip.
Always tip. Always, always. But I also really liked Diego, her son. I really liked Max, her grandfather. I liked all of their interactions. I also liked, because we haven't talked about this at all, that Maria changed a lot of characters to be gay, and she added queer characters and queer storylines. Yeah, I think that's great. And Henry's like confused and shocked, like, that person's not gay. And she's like, yes, they are. They just didn't feel comfortable coming out to you. Like they were always gay though. And I loved that. That was so great. Because that is something a writer, would think like, oh, this character has revealed themselves to me. So anyway, I thought that was great. I like that even though this is a straight romance film, we're getting some queer touches. And like you had said earlier, Evan, men are also sending Henry, seductive, salacious videos. And also, to me, it's very clear that Pedro, the Mexican publisher, is queer coded too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I liked his character, actually, how he gets angry with them and tells them to just fucking get it done.
I liked that too. And also because I feel like, again, because rom-coms have all these absurd, like, well, why don't you just do this and this would fix the problem? Just be honest. But he kind of cuts through that and is like, no, here's why you can't do that. And so I liked it because he's calling them out on their bullshit, but also it's kind of explaining why they're going along with this ruse for as long as they're going along with it.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
yeah.
You know what? This has been a lot of fun hearing you guys kind of praise this movie.
Yeah, I can't believe I liked it as much as I did. Really, I'm really surprised. But there's something going on here, and maybe it is just the fact that Veronica Chigi is so good. And now I want to see her in more things.
Me too. I was just like, I've seen her before, but I couldn't tell you in what movies. But she has such a central role in this that I was just, I think she was great, or is great, I should say. Because movies, unless they're lost movies from like the 20s, live on forever. So, anybody have closing thoughts on the old book, O Love?
Just one more thing I wanted to add. I liked I feel like you were starting to get at this, Megan, when you were talking about her changing the story around. I liked that added a lot more drama.
Yes.
In a way that they were describing as calling back to telenovelas. Mm-hmm. And then I love that in the movie, it also becomes like kind of a telenovela at the end, like at the show, like the book interview or whatever. It's like the ex is coming out and there's all this drama and there's like, I just thought that was a funny kind of like way to also tap into that in the story being, this takes place in Mexico.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I had completely forgotten that I wanted to talk about that. So thank you, Evan. What I really loved that she Maria makes a commentary about telenovelas, because when one of the interviewers asks Henry about it, and she's like, you studied all the classics of literature, but your book is really dramatic. It's not boring. It's like a telenovela. And he's like, oh, no. It's nothing like that. Like as if telenovelas are something, kind of disdainful or, not art. And she's like, what's wrong with telenovelas? They're dramatic. They have emotion and all, great characters. And she's totally right, because so often romances and soap operas and melodramas are denigrated in our society. The ending though, what's funny? I thought like if I had not seen the movie and I just listened to this episode, I'd be like, oh wow, that ending sounds great. And I did like that the woman's water broke because it was just so absurd. But there's something about the off the rails absurdity that just didn't quite land for me. I'm like, what is happening? And like, I know it's trying to be like a telenovela, but I don't know. It didn't quite all come together, but I love that you enjoyed it. But I did like that the woman who's been following them the whole time, her water broke.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I'm so glad you liked this movie, Evan. I really am.
You know what? I'm glad you both liked it too, because I was worried. I was so convinced that you both were going to hate both of these movies that this was just going to be kind of dreary tonight.
No, I guess maybe I'm feeling generous this week. I don't know.
Yeah, but you both liked them enough to kind of offset my negativity. So well done.
Right.
But your negativity on both of them is completely spot on. I just want to say.
Thank you.
Right. And a lot more fun to talk about, honestly, because if all three of us agree, and I know sometimes that can be less fun to listen to if it's like we have shades of disagreement or we just straight up disagree about something.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. I mean, I think that brings the documentary / rom-com version of Spoiler Piece Theater to a close for the evening. Mm-hmm. Let's do ye old recap. Everything is
ye. Should have done that last week for Robin Hood.
Oh, that would have been perfect.
Ye old Robin. Yeah, exactly. So Boris Karloff, the man behind the monster. I think we have mixed feelings about it, but did we say whether we would recommend it or not? I mean, any. I mean, I
mean, I don't think it's a good documentary, but I do think there's some interesting tidbits about Boris Karloff. So if you don't know about him, or if you want to learn more, it might be worth watching.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah. So
yeah, I agree as well.
Yeah, that's on Shudder as we speak. A Grand Romantic Gesture is basically on video on demand. It sounds like we have one yay, one and one no. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I wouldn't really recommend this, but if you watch it, I might just skip to like the last third of the film.
I'd watch the last 34 minutes. There you go.
Yes, just watch that and it's great. But the rest, junk it.
Oh, man. And then you have Book of Love, which is out on Prime. And that's everyone.
I say see it. Why the fuck not?
I can't believe I'm going to say it, but I say see it too.
Wow. Well, you know where I stand, everybody.
There's something really delightful about this. I don't know what it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Better than your average bad rom-com. I'll go back to what I said before.
Yeah. All true. So that's it, everyone. We want to thank our editor, Otto Clamor. Otto, thank you for doing the heavy lifting each week and making me sound better. They sound good already, they being Evan and Megan. But
oh, shucks.
Thanks, Dave. And thanks, Otto.
Yeah, thanks, Otto.
You can find Spoiler Piece Theater anywhere you get podcasts. You can visit us on our website, spoilerpiece.com. You can find us on social media, Spoiler Piece Theater on Facebook, at Spoiler Piece on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. If you wanted to get in touch with us and agree with me about A Grand Romantic Gesture and Book of Love, you could email us at spoilerpiece@gmail.com. Or if you wanted to leave a voicemail about it, you could give us a call.
At 862-21-PEACE.
That's right. Leave us a voicemail and, let's be generous. And you can agree with Evan and Megan this week about the two rom-coms, fine.
Blah, 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 I guess.
If you really like the show, please rate and review us by going to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece. You can also rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you really, really like the show, please consider joining our Patreon. This week over on the Patreon, we talk about Claire Denis' High Life, and it is the winner of our monthly poll. The poll this month was about sci-fi or space movies, I should say. And that's, as we say, that. My name is Dave Riedel. I write about movies. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd as Dave Sees Movies.
My name is Evan Crean. I'm co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd as Real Recon, and that's real as in film reel.
And my name is Megan Kearns. I write for Edge Media Network. I, too, am a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. You can follow me on Twitter at OpinionSWorld or on Instagram and Letterboxd at TheOpinionS.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.